I am shockingly excited for this episode. Okay, this is actually an episode that I am more excited for than I've been in a while for one. This is just really, really fun for me. And we are talking all about how to just be a really good friend. But honestly, I feel like maybe we should scratch out the word friend and say good human. Okay. All about cultivating like love and hospitality in your life. And I feel like it's a lost art. So maybe this has a little bit to do with like hosting or just being socially aware in public to people around you, all of the things, and then just friendship in general of just how to be a good human. Okay, we're going to talk about that. How to be a human that interacts with other people in a way that just exudes love. That's what we're talking about today. And I have so many shockingly good tips for you that are so small, so easy to apply to your life, but will make a massive difference. So let's do it. Let's jump in. So I'm drinking a sugar-free vanilla matcha today. And I was recently in a meeting at work and everyone was telling me how matcha tastes like grass. And I was like, listen, I also used to think that. I don't know at what point it shifted. I don't know at what point I no longer get the grassy flavor. I remember thinking it tasted like grass the first time I tried it. And honestly, maybe in the first couple of times trying matcha, but there was a definite shift. And maybe it's something where you eat it enough and or drink it enough, I guess. And the next thing you know, you're a matcha girl. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I love matcha and I love it so much. Specifically, butterfly pea matcha right now, which is like tea leaves that are like little butterfly peas. They're so cute. And it's blue. It's blue. And that's just so magical and fun for the summer. So, anyways, vanilla matcha. 10 out of 10 recommend. But I here to talk about friendship and hospitality and all of that. And I am really excited. Okay. This is something that I have been really trying hard to cultivate in my own life to get really, really good at just being someone that is a friend. And it's a skill that needs to be honed. And I truly mean that. This is not something that I think everyone is just naturally good at because there's a lot to learn when it comes to navigating other people because not everyone thinks the way that we think, the way that you think. Not everyone thinks in the same exact way or pattern. And I remember when I was in a philosophy class, we talked about how there's a thought in your brain, there's a thought in someone else's brain, and communication is when you try to get the thought from your brain to their brain. And there's always going to be some sort of miscommunication. Whether that is super minor because they understand something differently than the way you understand something, but there's still a same like foundation for the thought, or whether it's major and you both are on completely different pages. It's impossible not to miscommunicate with people. And so relationships are hard in general. Friendships are freaking hard. Community is hard. It just is. But there's so many benefits to it. And if you are someone who is actively seeking to hone the craft, the skills required to be a good friend, to be someone that people can come to and count on, that's really good. And that is a part of hospitality, right? That's a part of being someone that is just reliable and loving and hospitable. Okay? So we're going to talk a lot about some strategies and then tips on how to be a better friend because it's a skill. But before we do, I just want to say I was looking up some like verses in scripture and really trying to find like what God says about friendship. And he has a lot to say about friendship. A lot. Okay. But a few that I wanted to touch on. Okay. Romans 12:13, share with the Lord's people who are in need, practice hospitality. And I think that really speaks into what I just said about as it's a skill. You have to practice it. It's not going to be perfect each time. It might be you who screws it up. It might be someone else, but no matter what, it's not going to be perfect. It's not meant to be perfect. It's a practice. And, Hebrews talks about showing hospitality to strangers. And then First Peter talks about how offering hospitality and kindness to people without grumbling, just like all of these verses. And then I love the one in Titus 1:8 says, rather he must be hospitable, one who loves what is good, self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. Like, that's just so beautiful. So the Bible has a lot to say on hospitality and being a good friend. This isn't about necessarily friendship, period. It's about how to be a good friend, how to be the person, and hopefully that will help you cultivate good relationships and friendships, but it's not necessarily a given. That's not what this is about, because this is also very much so for strangers. For strangers, absolutely. So let's jump in. These are some the word strategies that feels kind of cold for this episode. These are some very tangible ways that you can start to practice being a good friend and showing hospitality as we're called to do, and creating that pattern in your life. Okay. First thing, a warm welcome. This might sound strange, but there is nothing quite as inviting as a warm welcome from someone. And this, for some reason, we think in our brains it's cool to be aloof sometimes. We think it's cool to be like, oh, hey, didn't see you there. Or, hey, what's up? Uh, Let me tell you, as someone who has been to many houses, many small groups, many parties, that does not make me feel good when someone greets me with oh, you're here. Hello. Nice to see you. That's not making me feel valued as a person. Even if the person you're talking to brings that energy with them, a warm welcome will be it just goes so far into making someone feel seen. And this is not just welcoming them into your space or something that you're facilitating, okay? If you're a leader of anything and you're welcoming someone into your space, 100%, like, must do, have a warm welcome for them with a smile, their name if possible, a very friendly tone, and just like genuine, I'm not saying to like freak out, but genuine excitement that they are there. That goes a long way. And it goes a long way also, not just when it's your space. And so an example of this is I was at a event, and it was not my event at all. It was for someone else. Someone else was hosting it, and it was a shower. And someone walked in and they just kind of like gave me a little nod. I knew of the person. I didn't know the person directly. And I just kind of like nodded back and smiled. And then I was like, wow, that was not good on my part. Like, yes, that's the energy that they brought me, but I know that I am someone that wants to make other people feel very valued in the moment. So I need to do better. And so I took a minute to be like, wow, call that out myself. That was not a warm welcome. That was not me being a good friend or a hospitable person. So I went back to that person, was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I didn't get to come say hi earlier. It is so lovely you're here. How was your drive in? And I gave them a big hug and tried to have a moment of connection with them. And the shift that I saw in that person was insane. They instantly became so much warmer. There was a wall that you could just like almost see visibly just drop from their exterior facial expressions. And I could tell that that person now felt way more comfortable interacting with me, but also just being in the room. And that's important. Okay. So a warm welcome is massive when it comes to being just a good friend, a hospitable person. Okay. Next, attentiveness. All right. This is so crucial to a relationship of any kind. I don't know if there's anything that irks me more in all of life than trying to have a conversation with someone and either A, they start interrupting or pointing something out, or B, they're on their phone. Okay? There's little else that really bothers me because it makes whoever's speaking just feel like what their words, their emotions that they're experiencing while they're talking, their story, whatever it is, does not matter. And a part of being a good friend or someone that wants to share the love of Jesus with other people, you have to remind them that they matter. And a small way that you can remind people they matter is being so incredibly attentive. So when I walk into a room and I start speaking to someone and they're like, oh, hold on. And they're pulling out their phone and they're like, oh, did you see this picture? Or they're like, oh, wait, that sounds good. But actually, did you see this? Or, oh, did you hear about this? It just shuts me down personally. It shuts me down when I experience that. And I noticed that I actually did this a lot. Not because I was trying to be rude or because I wanted to express that their opinion was less than, but because as they're talking, my brain starts to flutter and I'm like, oh, well, what about this? Oh, well, what about this? Oh, and people can tell when you're not attentive. People can tell. So being attentive and just being there as an active listener is so crucial. Active listening means that I am making eye contact with someone, either nodding along or I've heard mixed emotions on verbally agreeing. Okay. I've heard that it makes someone feel rushed when they're talking. I love when people verbally agree with me, especially over like a phone conversation. So I am a verbal agreeer. So if someone's telling me a story, I'll be doing that. Oh my goodness, yes, wow. I will do that during a conversation because I like the affirmation that you are engaged in the conversation. You are engaged in my story. And that has to be very carefully done with a sense of non interruption. You're not interrupting to affirm what they're saying, but you're agreeing or at least actively engaged in what they're saying. So read the room if that includes verbal cues. But keeping your eyes on them, or if they're a hand talker, somewhere around their hands, keep your eyes on them. Nod along and genuinely listen. Genuinely listen. Here's my thing. You already know everything there is to know about you. You know what you're doing for your job. You know what you're doing for your family. You know the details. So why do you need to share that with everyone else when someone else maybe wants to share with you? Give them the space to do so. And that is the next thing that I'm going to say is asking freaking questions. Oh my goodness gracious. I cannot tell you how important it is as a friend, as someone who wants to be hospitable, to ask intentional questions during a conversation. This has become my new challenge to myself and is my favorite thing ever. I absolutely love to do this. It is so good to ask intentional questions during a conversation and not just be ready to say what you want to say next. What I mean by this is sometimes we'll start to think about what we're going to say or how we're going to tie whatever that person's talking about in back with what we want to talk about in. And that's a selfish way to approach a conversation. Truthfully, if all you want to do is talk about yourself, it's selfish. And I have 1 bajillion% done that for the majority of my life. For the majority of my life, as someone is talking to me, I am trying to think about how to respond to them, how to sound smart, how to talk about what I want to talk about, how to steer the conversation. I'm not engaged with that person. And that is something that I have seen in myself over the last 20 years of my life and wanted desperately to change. And so a way that you do that is by asking engaging questions to that person. I mean, we have all been in a conversation with someone who is eagerly listening to what we're saying and genuinely wants to know more. And that's a thing. It has to come from a genuine place. You should desire to get to know someone. If you're in a room full of strangers, you know nothing about any of these people. Any of these people. There should be no awkward pauses because there's always questions to ask. So there's a little question tip thing. I feel like there's an acronym for this, but I actually don't know the acronym. But areas to always talk about for someone else, always. You have the generic career, okay? Always love a good career. How did they get into that? How long have they been into that? Has that always been a passion? Is that what they studied in school? Is that what they want to do for the rest of their lives, or do they have different plans? Okay, like all of those questions are wonderful, beautiful, very engaging, very thoughtful. And they're going to tell you a lot about the person. Next set of questions, geography. As crazy as this sounds, where do they live? Where have they lived? Traveling, do they have any trips coming up? Where's their dream place to travel? Have they traveled a lot in the past? Where's their favorite place to travel? Where could they go back? If you could go anywhere, where would you go? All of these are engaging questions that genuinely leave space for the other person to give their opinions on things. Family is a huge one. I also, I usually stay away from family because there's been enough conversations that I've had where it hasn't like backfired or anything, but there have been moments where I was like, oh, like someone's either recently passed away or there's no good relationship with someone. And that's hard to have with a initial friendship. But if it's someone that you know well, that is really important to be able to check in on family matters, ask questions about families. If someone has kids, that's huge. That is huge to do. And it's just really important for that whole thing. And then next is leisure, hobbies, activities you like to do, sports you like to play, things you like to watch, books you like to read, podcasts you like to listen to. All of that is fascinating stuff. And this is probably my favorite area to talk about because A, you're getting fun tips. B, you're learning so much about another person and what they genuinely love. So having a desire to actually learn about someone else is huge, 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 huge. And if you want to be someone who's a good friend and someone who's very hospitable, you have to have a desire to give that person the ability to speak so you can learn more about them. And ultimately, because that makes them feel seen. It does. It makes them feel seen. Okay, so that is very, very important. I do want to do a little disclaimer here. This is not meant to be an interrogation. Like, I don't want you going away from this being like, oh my gosh, so your dad died in 1994. Well, then what happened? Well, then what happened? Well, then did you start drugs? Like that's not what this is, okay? There is a level of privacy and boundaries that has to be respected. Especially when it comes to some of those questions about family. But what I always find is just being like, and you don't have to answer that if you don't want. I just have loved getting to know more about you. That is such a disarming question or disarming disclaimer to throw on a question. And to give the motivation behind why you're asking helps a lot. And additionally, I'm going to say don't give advice where it's not needed because there is nothing worse than asking a question like, oh, where did you grow up? And someone says like, oh, I grew up in Chicago, but it wasn't a great situation. My parents were divorced. Oh, well, you know what? As this is what you do as a divorced child. Like, don't jump into that. Don't start giving advice and preaching at them on different areas of their lives and stuff like that. Just genuinely listen. Attentively listen and ask engaging questions to follow up. And I feel like that's not rocket science. But if you do feel like there was a question that overstepped, throw on the disclaimer. And this is why I always will say is, oh my gosh, you don't have to answer that, but I just genuinely have loved getting to know you. That's great. That's great right there. Okay. Next, attention to detail is really, really vital in these moments. Okay. When someone's telling you a story, asking follow-up questions is so great. So great. And the follow-up questions can be anything like, oh, I was in Chicago and I was eating at a restaurant and I got a little nervous because I was like, oh, I have an allergy. And they're going to ramble on about the story. And then to go back and be like, oh my goodness, what are you allergic to? Like, that's so random. But do you know how much that shows that you were listening and engaged? That's great. Attention to details. Additionally, this is my pro tip. Are you ready? I have a notes app, a note on my notes app that has a running list of maybe prayer requests or just life events that are happening for certain people that I reference regularly. It also serves as my gift list. So like if someone mentions like, oh, you know what, I've just been loving playing pickleball. I really hope that someday I can get my own pickleball set. I will throw that in the notes app so fast because at some point I would love to bless them and either for something get them a pickleball set or just love on them randomly maybe and get them a little pickleball ball or something like that. You know what I mean? Or I have a thing that says like there will literally be a prayer request under there and it could be a prayer request for anything. For example, like, oh, so-and-so's mom is going in for surgery. I will put that in my notes. And then if I can, I will put the date of the surgery in my calendar with a reminder to text. My calendar is full of reminders. And I use the Google Calendar for this. They're just little reminders that pop up and then you can mark them as done. And I will have them pop up and then I will text them the date of their mom's surgery or the date of whatever event is happening. And then I just mark it off my calendar. And this isn't meant to sound like I am trying to become transactional with my relationships or I can't actually remember it, but I genuinely have a lot going on. And if I don't put things in my calendar, or if I don't write things down, I won't remember every detail of something that's going on. But I want the person to feel seen. I want them to feel heard in that and to know that I'm listening when they say this stuff and that I care about that moment because I care that their mom is going in for surgery as an example. It's like such a random example. So the attention to details is crucial to just really, really good hospitality. Okay. And then the follow up. I am a heavy overthinker on a lot of things. There will be times where I will overthink things intensely, especially after a coffee date with someone or getting dinner or lunch or whatever. Anytime, really, any social interaction, I have a tendency to overthink what happened at that interaction and to stress about it and be like, oh, I wonder if they judge me for saying this, or I wonder if they hate me because I said that, or I wonder if I talk too much here, or I asked too many questions that they didn't want to answer and I was overstepping and all this stuff. I get so in my head about it, about everything like that with the interactions with people. And that's me. That's me judging their thoughts, and that's on me as something I'm working through. But something that alleviates this for me, truthfully, and maybe that's selfish, but also I feel like when other people do it for me is so amazing, is a follow-up. After you see someone, just sending a text that says, "Thank you so much for giving me part of your time. I loved catching up with you. I loved hearing your story. Hope to chat again soon." That simple text, when I am on the receiving end and I am in the middle of overthinking everything that just happened, everything I said, did I overshare, all this stuff, that text alleviates that feeling for me of feeling like I've gone too far, or oh my gosh, they hate me, whatever it is. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. I've talked to a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, every single time I leave any social interaction, I'm so sure that everyone hated me there. To be able to send that text message and allow someone else to maybe not be feeling that because they're able to be confident that I enjoyed my time and I enjoyed getting to know them. I want to do that for someone. I want to be able to be that. So just sending a text me like, thanks so much for talking. I love that. I hope you have a good rest of your day and let me know if there's anything I can pray for. Or, hey, I'll be praying for XYZ that we talked about. Thank you for opening up. Can't wait to chat again soon. All of those things are so important. So important. Okay. So those are just some of the main strategies that I really love. And then on a more generic thing, I something I'm working on is being more attentive to strangers. A lot of what we just talked about are people that we either are acquaintances with or that we somewhat know or maybe are friends with, but attention to strangers is so important. And I've just loved doing this lately, is allowing myself to engage with the public. I think that for a lot of us, engaging with people in a city specifically, obviously I live in a city, it can be a little bit like, oh, you don't do that. You don't talk to people on the street. You don't look up from your phone if you're walking. You don't do any of that. You're just cut and dry go. And maybe part of that is growing up near Chicago. I got a little bit of that. Or, I'm sure all of my Northeaster girlies can relate. My Northwest too, actually. I've heard a lot of that. But honestly, smiling at people, assisting where you can if someone has their hands full and going and running up and grabbing the door. Just little moments of that, offering the assistance to people who are carrying stuff, or just saying hi to people you're passing. That's big. That's big. And it's ways to just genuinely give a touch of love, like a little of love, just a little tap of love to people around you, and not feel so consumed by yourself. And that's just crazy to me. And another little way that you can do this with strangers is expressing appreciation slash real compliments. Okay. Example. This is something my brother does really well. And I love watching my brother do this. So I've started doing this as well. I was in the drive-thru at Dunkin' the other day. I was grabbing just a coffee. The guy who handed it to me, he was just like bubbling enthusiasm. He was so sweet. And I said, you know what? I just like want to take a second and just say, you are exuding joy and such a joy to just talk to. And I have been like, you've made my day of genuinely, of just making my coffee, first of all, but then also being here to do this. Thank you so much for just the way that you are handling your role and the amazing way that you just are loving on the customers here. And he just kind of stared at me for a second and was like, whoa. And he goes, thank you so much for saying that. Wow. That was like really sincere. And then I drove away with my coffee. Like that was it. And I'm not saying that this like had some massive impact on this dude, right? Like he was like a teenager working there, but he like stared at me for a minute and like could not fathom why I said that to him. And that kind of broke my heart for a second. The appreciation side of things. So simply telling people that they're really good at their job. That has been something that I've been loving doing lately, is telling people you're really good at your job. This is so cool to watch you do this with so much excellence. They all are like shocked to hear that. They genuinely are. And it's been fun. It's a fun way to show my appreciation in a larger way and offer a compliment to someone. And that just goes such a far way to, speak what's on your mind. You like someone's outfit, you call it out. Oh my gosh, I love your outfit. You look so cute right now. Your hair, I'm obsessed. Where'd you get it cut? Like, that makes my day when people say that to me. And so if I can do that on a small scale for other people, why would I not want to do that? Why would I not want to do that? So, anyways, that's been just so much so what I've been working on lately, and being a hospitable person across the board, whether it's to friends, acquaintances, strangers, family members, all of them. A couple of things that you're going to want to dive deeper on this if you want to. Unreasonable Hospitality book freaking changed my life. I've talked about this a little bit on the Instagram. That book is so good. If you have Spotify Premium, I'm pretty sure it was included for me, at least on the audiobooks. It is so good. It's first of all, it'll make you want to open a restaurant, but it talks about how to take the next step and just be unreasonably hospitable towards people around you and what that looks like. And it is so freaking cool. I absolutely love it. It's definitely more for like a work career mindset of customer service, but there's a lot you can do with it. I also love The Art of Hospitality, a practical guide for a ministry of welcome, and that's by Christine D. Pohl. That's really cool because it talks a lot about the theological side of hospitality and the practical side of like hospitality culture, so that's really cool. And then, this one's so good. The Gospel Comes with a House Key, Practicing Radically Ordinary Hospitality in Our Post-Christian World. That's Rosaria Butterfield who writes that, and wow, radical approach to hospitality. Radical. So good. I also love Just Open the Door, How One Invitation Can Change a Generation. That's by Jen Schmidt. And that talks a lot about just really open-hearted hospitality towards strangers and stuff. So those are a couple. Again, we'll talk about those more on the Inspired Lady podcast Instagram, but I hope that those are resources that genuinely equip you and help you in this, because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to be hospitable and to be a good friend and to engage with people on a way that makes them feel so valued. It makes them feel so seen. And honestly, I've got to say it, like, people just respect you more for it if you're able to love on others well. It really is an incredible opportunity. So I encourage you to be a good friend, to cultivate love and hospitality in your life, because it's so rewarding. It really is.